share the same territory with other living creatures without always understanding one another very well. Using a new scientific and sensitive approach, a few passionate naturalists have inverted their view on life, taking the perspective of an animal, a plant, or a landscape in order to become its most faithful interpreter, in the hope of changing the way we see the worlds of the wild.
I didn't think it would come this way, but it's actually managed to use its snout to try and find food to eat in this shallow bit of earth, even though it's mostly stones.
Raphaël Mathevet is an ecologist and a geographer, a researcher at the National Center for Scientific Research, specializing in interactions between humans and the natural world. In recent years, he's been focusing on the divisive figure of the wild boar. These large mammals, whose nickname today is bête noire, have always been thought of as a natural inhabitant of the forest. But today, they're singled out mostly for the destruction they cause, laying waste to crops, and are increasingly seen in town centers, causing concern wherever they go. So Raphaël is posing the question, are they the only ones responsible for this imbalance? Or have humans, with their practices and their management of land and ecosystems, caused this situation? Can we envisage a way of living together in balance and harmony, respecting the needs of both parties? To answer this question, he takes the approach of a scientific mediator, meeting all the parties concerned: farmers, hunters, public services, inhabitants of both town and country. His aim is to understand the different perspectives, listen to their frustrations and their requirements, and to explore with them sustainable strategies to once again allow all parties to live together based on mutual understanding.
Here we've got a nice hoof print of a wild boar. You see two little indentations, which are really clear and quite spaced out compared to the hoof. At first glance, I'd say it looks like we have a magnificent specimen around here. The print is quite recent. It's possible that he's sticking close to us and listening to what I'm saying about him. It's a fascinating animal, with its skill for hiding itself. Very elusive. It can be everywhere in a particular place, but then disappear and become invisible and silent. What fascinates me is their capacity to harness any environment. You find them everywhere, in the mountains, on glaciers, in the forest, on the plain, next to water, in among reed beds, in fabulous wetlands, on the beach. At the end of the day, there aren't many animals that have such an ability to make the most of a place, to be constantly on the move, and to harness such a variety of resources. So they're known as the bêtes noires because they can do a lot of damage to fields and crops, which causes a lot of anger. But actually, these animals are really important to forestry because they turn over the forest floor to find insects, acorns, beech nuts, and they transport seeds in their fur and droppings. When they do this, they regenerate environments and air them, and so contribute to the renewal of the forest and to the natural world.
Wild boar are no longer purely considered as an asset to our forests, but rather as an animal to be eradicated. Nowadays, they live their whole lives under threat from man. They deal with this problem by relying on their highly developed sense of hearing and smell. Only their sight lets them down, confusing black and blue and white and yellow. They can't see very far or distinguish certain colors like red. Their world is black, white and gray.
Sometimes we come face to face with them, and there's always that moment of hesitation before they run off. The astonishment you can read in their eyes, and a feeling of otherness that makes you question what we are doing to the natural world and what feelings it arouses in us.
Wild boar no longer remain solely in forests, but move from place to place, live, sleep, eat and drink in fields and gardens, creating tension between them and the rural populations in the farms and towns they venture into. 50 years ago, it was rare to come across a wild boar, and today it's commonplace, routine. The population explosion came about partly due to the disappearance of their natural predators, like wolves, which previously regulated their numbers. But it's also down to hunting practices, which, far from slowing down their proliferation, have actually contributed to their expansion.
Il y en a plusieurs. Il y a eu l'agriculture moderne qui a un peu... On a coupé des bosquets qui sont des refuges, mi-bouffires, chasser ces petits animaux, du au éclat, phal, genfag. On profite de ce d'observation. On est un petit peu étonné de voir de plus en plus de samedis à la chasse.
To develop sustainable strategies for restoring balance to the relationship between humans and boar, you first have to fully understand the reasons for their proliferation. Hunters are a key part of this, and Raphaël Mathevet speaks with them on a regular basis. Previously, hunters were considered to be the keepers of balance between humans and animals, but they now find themselves caught up in issues that go beyond the simple practice of their sport.
Here you can see some very distinct marks. You can imagine the scene with the sow lying on her side, the roundness of her back, and then all those little tracks of the young coming to feed. You can just imagine all the little ones there, the mother lying on the cool ground and the young coming to feed on that side. They like this kind of area because it pretty much ticks all the boxes. There's coolness, there's food to eat, and then there are places they can hide under. You can see it goes up
all over the place.
They can go anywhere around here. Hunters are also trappers. What I mean is, they can read the tracks to some extent, know the state of mind of the animal, and can tell the story of what happened when on a hunt.
Historically, hunters played a role in the proliferation of wild boar. Up until the 1960s, hunting was focused on hedgerows and fields, animals such as partridge, rabbits, and hares. But with the advent of modern farming and the disappearance of these species, hunters turned to the wild boar, creating favorable conditions for its proliferation, breeding, release into the wild, feeding, and selective shooting. Charles Guilherme, who comes from a family of hunters, has witnessed this change firsthand.
So before there basically weren't any wild boar. They were rare, weren't they?
They were very rare in the region. If you bagged a wild boar in the area 20 years ago, caused a bit of a stir around here. There'd be 30 hunters to one boar. Now it's the other way around.
They were reintroduced, and people learned what was needed to keep them in a particular territory, feeding them and creating watering holes. And that was a big factor in their success. And it was a success for the hunters, because they paved the way for the return of big game, like stags, roe deer, and wild boar. The problem with the boar is that they breed like rabbits.
You see that area that's been damaged?
Yes, it looks like it's been bulldozed.
Exactly. You can see how powerful the animal must be. Look at the size of the stones it can move, the size of the roots it manages to cut through.
That's pretty impressive. Must be a monster.
Well, it's a whole troop of them. But if that's the damage they can do in a small area, imagine what they can do in the middle of a wheat field or a cornfield.
Yeah, you can see why farmers get angry.
It's a shame that we only talk about this animal in terms of the damage it does and not about what a fine animal it is. Not that long ago, they were one of the kings of the forest along with the stag. And now they're just reduced to being commonplace game, which is sad because they deserve better than that. They really do.
With its solid body weighing up to 150 kilos, wild boar are capable of doing enormous damage to crops, gardens, and allotments, causing problems to infrastructure and also causing traffic accidents. Their ability to reproduce means that females can give birth to 2 litters in under 2 years, with 4 to 7 young each time. So a single group can see its population double very quickly. Over the years, this population explosion has meant that hunting has gone from being a sport to being a regulated cull on a grand scale, in order to reduce local populations. Whatever it takes.
The problem is that now that the wild boar population is so high, the public authorities are using us for official culls, which just means destroying the boar.
Yes, and there you destroy all sorts, young, adults, old, big.
That's the problem. You realize how difficult it is managing the wild boar population. And that's where it ends for me. I'm a hunter, not an exterminator. It's going to get to a point when it just isn't hunting anymore, and that's probably when I'll stop.
It becomes regulatory.
Let's just tell it like it is. It's slaughter.
Like it is in some areas already.
Yes, indeed. We do what we can, but the population has outstripped us.
At the beginning of the 1970s, 35,000 boar were killed each year. Since 2020, it's more than 800,000 per year. Hunting is the main cause of mortality among wild boar, meaning that hunters have become the principal regulators of the species that they helped make so prolific. By 2030, it's estimated that more than 1 million boar will need to be killed each year to try to contain the population, making some hunters very uneasy. With this in mind, Raphaël stresses that even though hunting is crucial in controlling the proliferation, we need to re-evaluate our practices and stop feeding and watering wild boar. By reducing our excessive interventions, we'll allow nature to return to its natural role in the regulation of the species.
There are 1, 2, 3, 4 little piglets. They're all stripy. It's always really sweet to see them at this innocent age when they haven't faced any threats yet. It looks as if the mother isn't with them anymore. The sow must have been killed, either by hunters or culled. When the female is killed or dies, the group lacks structure and has to learn to get by on its own in a fairly hostile environment. You can see that they are always on the lookout, and you realize how vulnerable they are. And it's quite moving. It must be exhausting to live permanently on the lookout and to listen out for the slightest sound, the slightest movement that could indicate a threat. From where I'm standing, the life of a wild boar isn't an easy existence. I wouldn't want to swap places.
Our consumption habits and farming practices have also actively contributed to the uncontrolled reproduction of wild boar. With the development of intensive farming, fields of crops provide easy access to an abundance of food. And farmers have found themselves on the front line, becoming the main victims of the destruction wrought by wild boar on their crops. More than 35 million euros per year throughout the country. Faced with this situation, Raphaël Mathevet believes it's imperative to listen carefully to the farmers' grievances to help him create strategies which deal with their everyday reality.
There, you can see where the boar have been through.
Oh, yeah. Well-worn path.
Well-worn.
So when they come through here, do they do much damage?
Yes, they cause damage to the vines. Not so much to the plants themselves, generally. But when the grapes start to ripen, they come and drink the grapes. When there's nothing to drink, it's cool in the furrows. There's no water, but when the grapes are ripe, they'll come and drink from the grapes.
They quench their thirst by eating.
Yeah.
In any case, the boar make themselves at home.
Yes, that's right. They make themselves at home on my land. It's not funny, but that's the way it is. We try to get on with it, but it's hard. We live together like a couple in the throes of divorce.
Many farmers have had to adapt their working practices to cope with the increasing damage caused by wild boar on their land. Denis Armand has run his vineyard for more than 40 years. He's a nature lover and has always made wildlife welcome on his land, including wild boar. But in the last 10 years or so, the large-scale intrusions and damage the animals have caused on his land have meant he's had to alter his working practices.
So, because of the boar, you've had to think carefully about what you sow?
Yes, we've had to. We sowed chickpeas, 3.5 hectares, and they ate it all in the space of 3 weeks. We tried sunflowers, same thing, everything was destroyed. There are some vegetables like courgettes where there's no point planting them because they just get eaten up by the boar. There's only hay that's worth keeping. The rest, there's just no point.
Does it make you angry, these issues with the wild boar?
Yes, very angry. You can't be happy when there's so much damage. And from a financial point of view, for my business and other businesses, it can cause a lot of extra costs, which could put us out of business.
Yeah, that must be stressful.
Yes, very stressful.
Until 1969, farmers were allowed to kill large game on their lands in order to protect their crops. But hunting federations wanted to be in charge of managing wild boar populations, including on farmland, and suggested that farmers give up this right in exchange for compensation for any damage caused. Today, it's up to hunting groups to compensate the farmers for any damage. But with the increase in wild boar numbers, the costs have gone through the roof. To limit the cost, preventive measures have been put in place, such as electric fences, but they are also expensive and often only protect a small proportion of the land.
So the boar comes along and touches this wire with its snout, and it'll get a big shock, and then if it touches this wire, then it'll get another big shock.
So it's a sort of dual impact.
Exactly.
And that one there?
That's just a visual reminder. The boar will remember and say to itself, watch out, danger, don't go in there.
It's a learning thread.
Yes, you could call it that.
So either the boar is clever and sees that and doesn't get a shock,
Or he isn't clever. but it's rare that they aren't. Once they've had an electric shock, they don't usually come back.
So do they make a detour somehow?
Yes, they go round all the fences. 20 years ago, we lived quite happily side by side with the boar, but now we have to do this because there's too many of them. But putting up fences and the maintenance that goes with it, that's work that we didn't do before.
Yes, it's more time and energy.
The time we spend on that means less time in the vineyards and in the fields. So there you have it. They can't get in, but
you feel more closed in.
yes, you're closed in on your own land. We have this amazing place with birds singing, hares passing by, dogs barking. It really is an amazing place. And we have to put up fences in it, which is completely illogical. That's not biodiversity. It's not the natural way.
Many farmers nowadays have chosen to fence off their lands to protect them from the wild boar. Even if it doesn't solve all the problems, it's a first step towards a more peaceful coexistence, allowing each to share in the land. Reducing the size of crop fields makes them easier to secure effectively. Raphaël believes that there are other avenues worth exploring. In his regular discussions with farmers, he's come to realize that local wildlife is rarely taken into consideration when choosing what to grow. Corn, for example, is particularly sought after by many species. It might be a sensible idea to diversify the crops and to think again about where to plant them so as to limit the effects of certain pairings. Nevertheless, hunting remains the first choice response by a long way. There are some areas where there's no hunting, and the boar, with their remarkable intelligence, appear to know them off by heart. Raphaël watches carefully over these safe zones, these areas where hunting is banned or impossible. Very often they're mountainous areas, or military land, or industrial wasteland, but also nature reserves. In these sanctuaries, Raphaël has the opportunity to observe their natural behavior, to analyze their habits, and to study their interactions at the heart of the ecosystem. These safe zones in which the animals can freely prosper remind us that they are, above all, a wild animal that, in common with others, makes nests called sounders for giving birth to their young.
Hey, look! That's a lovely sounder.
Oh, it's always really impressive seeing one.
Yes, we can't see them, we can't hear them, but they're there.
Yes, and you can see it doesn't need much space, just a little thicket, and it's enough to be able to construct a nest far away from prying eyes, far away from humans.
Well, this is the perfect place.
It's fascinating that a beast weighing 80 to 100 kilos can make something like that, just like a little bird. She broke down reeds and grasses and brought them in her mouth. She must have brought a lot of material. You could almost sleep here.
Easily.
That's actually really soft.
You can feel all the different layers.
Yeah, you can. You put your arm in and it doesn't touch the bottom of it.
A lot of work.
The vegetation is quite dense, It's difficult to get around, so there's not much danger of being disturbed here.
Clearly not.
A little piece of paradise.
Jérémy Petit is the manager of the Scamandre Nature Reserve in the Camargue. It's a haven for numerous species, such as the great bittern and the great egret, and also, in the last 10 years, an increasing number of wild boar. Like in many nature reserves, the presence of this animal in large numbers in these protected areas upsets the peace and quiet, meaning that managers have had to rethink how to protect nature. Meeting up with them helps Raphaël to better understand how these places, which were designed to preserve nature, are also making some conflicts worse.
Oh, look, there are a pair of red-crested potsherds taking off.
And on the island, there was a...
Yes, there's still one on it.
I don't know if there's a hatchling or not. I think so.
It's really lovely to see all these ibis flying above the reed beds.
It's great.
With high numbers of wild boar in the local area, is that causing you any particular problems at the moment?
2 years ago, I think it was, we had reports of something preying on purple heron in the woods there. It's just anecdotal. In reality, we don't have recurring problems. Now and then, a boar might turn over 10 square meters of communal habitat, but not enough for us to get worried about.
So they aren't a threat to the reproduction of protected species locally?
No, not at all. But there is damage to crops on farms close by. And that's more worrying, because hunting is banned on the reserve. We asked the public authorities to give us permits to trap the boar on the nature reserve and to get rid of them.
So that means that you capture and kill wild boar here in the reserve? Isn't that paradoxical? I mean, especially for a manager, a conservationist.
It's completely paradoxical. I haven't got anything against wild boars themselves. They have the right to live as much as any other animal. Actually, it's the hunting federations that pressure us to do that, because they're responsible for paying compensation for damage to crops.
And your neighbors accuse you of harboring them?
Accuse is a bit strong, but yes, they tend to point the finger at us, yes.
Okay, and how many do you kill?
Around 20 to 30 here in the reserve, and then there are the other sites.
That's quite a considerable number.
Yes, it's a lot. One of our employees spends at least 2 hours per day on it.
That's absolutely unbelievable.
Doing that buys us a bit of peace with our neighbors. I mean, we're part of the ecosystem, and we have to play the game too.
Agreed. But what I'm hearing is that there's no place for them in the countryside, on farmland. No place for them in town. No place for them in nature reserves. So where is the place for the wild boar?
Wild boar are out of luck. No one wants them.
The heart of these nature reserves demonstrates a complex reality in which dialogue and mutual understanding between managers, farmers and hunters is necessary in order to build a safe future for both the wild boar and those who share the same territory. This is precisely where Raphaël's work comes in. If wild boar aren't welcome even in places dedicated to wildlife, then it's time to look for new places, even ones that are close to cities. Something that Raphaël considers inevitable, given what he's observed in recent years. been several decades of constant construction. With the increase in infrastructure, there's fragmentation and reduction in the territories and natural habitats of wildlife. This reduction in natural areas, combined with the intense pressure from hunting, means that wild boar have been moving towards more densely populated areas, looking for food and safety, sometimes at the expense of people and property. Just as there are forest and rural boars, there are now also urban boars.
This seems to be a well-used area.
There's a lot of toing and froing, like a motorway.
Yes, and there they must have to go in single file.
Yes, and they go through here, under the bridge.
Yes, I see. It's a great way to get into town. And it's a lovely place here. Really beautiful. Under the fronds of the ash trees, you'd think you were in the middle of the country.
But really in the middle of houses.
Oh yes, that's what's so amazing. There's a little patch of wilderness among the houses.
So, what are we going to get? What's it going to tell us?
Is there a nice surprise?
A wild boar.
Yeah, but that's not really a surprise given the traffic here.
There are 2 of them. It's a big group.
Quite a crowd.
6, 7.
That's a pine marten.
A wild boar at 10 a.m. in full daylight.
That's a lovely one. There are some larger animals and quite a few mammals moving along these waterways to get into town. It confirms that there's quite a bit of traffic both night and day. It's quite amazing.
The Functional and Dynamic Ecology Centre where Raphaël works has used Montpellier as its research zone. For several months, he and a group of researchers and technicians, like Jules Dezer, have been running a research project whose results will be known in a few months' time. The project is looking at the presence of wild boar in this city of some 500,000 inhabitants. However, it's already clear that boar are becoming a part of urban life, and they're using cities as extensions of their natural milieu.
Do you see? There's a nice trace of dried mud.
A boar has been scratching and has left loads of hairs here.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Do you see how hard it is? It's probably an adult.
Yes. Yes, it's very hard. Yes, it seems to be quite fresh, doesn't it?
Quite fresh.
Yes, there are others as well.
There's quite a bit there.
It went that way.
Yeah, he seems to have gone in the direction of the cage. It seems that they come here quite a lot at the moment. Look at all that they've turned over. In any case, it's perfect, and we can arm the cage. Wild boar are coming into cities all over the world. Hong Kong, Barcelona, Rome, Berlin. So the purpose of our study is to try and understand why these animals are coming into cities. What are they looking for here? Where did they go? What do they do with spaces they use? How do they get around town? Where do they sleep? Where do they eat? We're aiming to find answers to those questions. We have a certain number of means at our disposal, one of which is to capture the animals. When they reach a certain weight, we put a GPS collar on them. This enables us to track their movements, and then we discuss these movements with people who have detailed knowledge of wild boar, but also with local inhabitants, to try and see what could be done to limit or contain their presence.
La présence de l'animal.
That's quite surprising because it's mostly using the grey line rather than the green or blue. That means that rather than following the waterways or natural green spaces, it's going quite happily along the avenues on the tarmac. So it's basically moving along urban routes. I find it quite surprising how they're going into the city centre. Mostly using main roads. So what those points and the GPS tracking are telling us is that even if wild boar are thought of as intruders in the city, they're actually part of the city's population because they sleep here, live here on a daily basis, move around like everyone else. These points really show how they are using the space, and they have every right to do so. It's often said that the boar are coming to town, but in actual fact, it's the towns that are spreading out and encroaching on the countryside, to the detriment of our rural spaces and of nature itself. We need to ask ourselves, where are wild animals to go in the 21st century? Our uncontrolled urban expansion makes us responsible for the changes in the behavior of animals in the wild, and therefore also for their presence in towns. This is the result of our actions, and we are clearly responsible for it. Hence the necessity to think about all this much more seriously. There's a wild boar foraging. It's stuffing its mouth with grass. There are several young, 2, 4, maybe 5. It's a sow with her young, with her piglets. They aren't very old. They're pushing the mother. They're forcing her to lie down on the grass. When you come across an animal like this by surprise, you see their true nature to some extent. The wild animal living peacefully in the middle of the woods. They're all around us, so we have to look at how we can manage them in an appropriate way in each territory. To do that, we are going to have to take the heat out of the debate, to recognize the role of farmers, the role of hunters, but also taking into account protected species, the protection of the natural world, and finding a place for the wild boar, our bête noire. If we do that, I think we can create spaces where we can live together with the wild boar, and other places where it may be important to live without them for safety reasons, but also places where we can live in spite of the wild boar, meaning living side by side. In the end, it's about coexistence, which actually already happens, but we need to be aware of it, to be aware of the eyes that are watching us. We encroach on their territory as much as they do on ours. We just need to find a way to live together.
Wild boar, once admired for their strength and courage, have in the modern world become a reflection of our contradictory attitudes towards nature. While we try to keep them at bay and to control them, they symbolize nature's ability to shrug off our desire to have mastery over it. Raphaël Mathevet's research demonstrates the complexity of the issue. Wild boar aren't simply a species that needs to be regulated. They also reveal the outcome of our own excesses and our increasing tendency to trample over ecosystems. Raphaël is asking us to rethink our place in the world at the same time as that of the boar, because there's a lot more at stake than just the tension between the two. Learning to coexist with things beyond our grasp, accepting that there are parts of the natural world that will remain forever wild and free. Raphaël believes that coexisting with the boar is a reflection of our relationship with the whole of the natural world, and asks us to imagine what it would be like to live and let live.